All right, I didn't do a very good job of filming all my elk hunts this year. I mean, I filmed a whole bunch, but the one cow elk I got, I didn't film that day because it was so cold. I couldn't keep my hands out of my mittens. Towards the end of this, I'm hunting with my son James, and the day before with my father-in-law, I killed an elk right there, near the Tetons there. But I didn't film any of it, but that elk is in the freezer. So we've got a freezer full of antelope from me and my boy killing a buck. A freezer full of a white-tailed deer I killed in Canada, which I have another video of. So I did a video for the antelope and the white-tailed deer, and then a freezer full of that cow elk. Technically, we got a couple weeks left here in January with 2 late season cow tags, but the snow's gotten so deep, I don't know that we'll fill them. So switching to ice fishing. But I'm just gonna throw all these video clips together, mainly so I can watch them in the years ahead and remember the hunts, but so it might not be all that entertaining to watch, but it's beautiful country and saw moose and bear and elk and antelope. So anyway, the freezer's full for the year. Had a good, successful fall of hunting after missing all of last fall because I was building this house. So hopefully it's not too boring. And if you want to see beautiful western Wyoming mountain country, that's what it all is. So enjoy. We called in this small bull moose. Oh, he's turning. We could hear him kind of moaning a little bit way up in the trees. And we were trying to figure out what it was. Then I was like, that's a moose. And then as we came up this trail, we kept seeing big old urine dig outs and thrash trees. And I was like, there's a ruddy bull moose up there. So I did that moose call, which I've never done before. I've just seen it on the shows. And he come in to right there. Yeah, too bad this isn't like Alaska where you have a moose tag in your pocket. Yeah, there's a lot of meat right there. Good meat. He's a little bit bigger than I thought he was. He might be 2 or 3 years old. Oh, there's one up above there. Yeah. That must be his cow. Yeah, must be. She was the one moaning. That's why he keeps looking back. Yeah. There's several moose up in there. You can hear the cow moaning up above him, and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That was worse of the morning. Huh? We're elk hunting, but we found moose. That's pretty great. We're hunting back up in the top of the canyon here. It's probably about 9,500 feet, maybe close. Well, it wouldn't be 10 there, but right around 9,500 feet here. We called in that moose a half-mile back. But we're gonna eat a little breakfast here. We hiked in probably 2 miles at this point from the four-wheeler, and we drove 2 miles into the canyon, four-wheelered 3, and hiked 2, maybe 2.5. So we haven't even seen the sun yet. Over on that ridge, and I saw a cow elk just come along this edge and go down. So I came to this draw, and I'm hunting along it. This fence doesn't mean anything. It's just an old cattle fence out in the national forest. So I can hunt on both sides. But I think I'm going to come to this point another morning and sit here, because I'm guessing they'll come up from the farm fields up into here. It's a beautiful morning. The fall colors are just hanging on still. Let's go find this elk. Right down in this valley of trees, an elk is bugling, just every once in a while. And so I came down off my ridge and worked my way to right here. And I'm tempted to call to him, but I also kind of want to just circle up and around and get right down in the edge, so he feels like I'm calling him back up into the forest. Or I might just sit here and see if he pops out. Like, they might slowly be moving. There's water down at the bottom here. And there's farm fields a mile that way. I feel like they were out in the farm fields last night. They're pulling back up and in. But I don't know if they're stopping here or they're going to keep going. Exciting. So I came off that ridge over there and worked my way back up. So I was tucked into this draw. So I'm pretty sure that bull is bugling from these trees here or the little aspens on the other side. Not the little, but the aspen grove on the other side. So I sat up here and being 10 or so days into October, I was hesitant to call because I felt like unless he was really ready, he would be like, all right, I've heard that all for 5 weeks now with our long archery season in Wyoming. I gave it a shot anyway. So I called a little bit. Twice. I never heard anything. Usually you'll hear branches break in the timber or the aspens if he starts to come in. By now, I don't think he'd bugle coming in. Unless he was really feeling some late ruddy behavior. But man, what a beautiful morning. But it's about 9 o'clock, so they'd be bedding about now. I just found him a little bit late, but I think I might come here in the dark on another morning and set up here, or even get up on top of that knobs really, really early and see if they come up into my lap. Well, sat here quite a while. Called just a couple of times at the very beginning. I couldn't get them to come out. But honestly, they could have been moving up the next draw over. But I'm going to come back down into here. I've never hunted down off that upper ridge. But this is all pretty off the beaten path, so I think setting up here in the late evening or early morning or both, try and pick off elk coming up and down. There's multiple trails coming down out of the mountain, and they've got fresh elk tracks in them. And what brought me down here was there's a fence line on that ridge, and from a mile up I saw the back of an elk, and then she came down into this side of this ridge here. So beautiful morning, worth getting up early, coming out in the dark. So I slipped out here in the dark, back on this ridge. I'm just waiting for enough light to come up that I can pick a tree, stand next to it, and glass all around me. Might look like there's more light than there is, but about 10 minutes. waiting for the elk to pop out. It's a beautiful morning in elk country. There's a moose right up on that ridge line. Right there. It's a cow, and earlier while I was sitting here in these aspens, I heard a moose raking in here. So there must be a bull somewhere in here. You could hear his paddles raking. And there's 3 moose over on that ridge over there. There's quite a few moose back in here. And I realized there were so many down in these draws. No elk this morning. I should probably sit another half hour or so. But earlier, the farm fields a mile down below where the elk tend to go, as I was coming up a dirt road, I could see back up in the farm fields there are 2 4-wheelers or side-by-sides going up through those farm fields back up to the base of these hills. I'm guessing, well, I hope they didn't know there was a bugling bull back in here the last couple days. But they probably bounced the elk before anybody got a chance to hunt them. Just going up through those farm fields, which is, I don't understand that, because everybody knows that's where a bunch of the elk around here pull down into. Why are you 4-wheeling through there in the pre-dawn hours? And they're obviously hunters, they weren't. Anyway. Such a beautiful, beautiful morning. There's that cow again, cow moose. And right in the trees is a pretty good sized bull moose. So I came back because I left my gloves sitting there. And I came back, and this morning I'd heard that raking. The cow was on the ridge, but I never saw the bull. And then coming back, the bull was standing just out, and I missed filming him. But pretty good sized bull. I think I have like 8 years worth of moose points in Wyoming. So far this season, I've seen 2 big bulls, one there and one up a canyon on the far side of the valley. Both bulls I'd shoot if I drew that tag one of these years here. Get it?
I hit it.
Is it going?
No, it's just fluttering in the water now.
Okay. You know what you're doing? Grandpa out there glassing. Big moon rising. James taking care of ducks. Did you see that young bull moose?
Yeah.
At the top of the aspens. Hey, there's something running right there. Can't see the full moon tonight. The clouds are so thick.
Right over there?
Got a whiteout this morning. We were glassing for a little bit, but somebody's breakfast. Okay, got my fishing pole and shotgun. Sneaking in on this duck pond. Fresh snow this morning, hoping there's ducks pinned down on these ponds. Good times. Such a beautiful morning. Stood by the campfire in the snow, glassing for elk. All right, got one teal off that. Felt good. No rings, no green wing teal. Surprised to see them hanging out this late here. And I used my fishing pole with a bobber and a big oversized treble to retrieve it. One cast and I retrieved it in. It's cold, 22 degrees. seeing them on the ridge up here all month. I also saw a bull elk down the ridge below him. So I hiked all the way up here. Well, that was cool. I saw a bull elk down the ridge, and so I hiked all the way up here. And I was coming down, and I bumped into that bull moose. I did see him too, way up here by the trees, but the bull elk was way down the ridge. I was hoping he'd bump off to the side instead of running down the ridge. Beautiful morning. Sorry. Moose bed with beautiful views. Not an elk in sight though. Beautiful morning. Big animals. That's 4 feet across. All right, I'm making ossobuco. I've never done it before. There's different ways to do it. It's an Italian dish, but I think I'm gonna do it a little bit different. But you take the shank off the deer or elk, and so this is my white-tailed deer from Canada, and that lower shank just kind of from the knee down to the ankle, that often just is full of sinew and stuff, and some people just throw them away, or give them to the dog. I cut the meat around the bone, and then into 1.5 inch thick deals, and then I used hacksaw to cut through the bone and created these slabs. So what you do is you brown these in the pan and then slow cook them in the cooker. But I think I'm gonna marinate mine. So, and then I'll do all that. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna do a dry rub on top, which was this stuff. Oh, that's not it. This is it. Butcher's Burger Blend, cracked pepper and garlic. So I just wanted pepper and garlic and salt on the top, and then I'm gonna pour olive oil down in the bottom to get a wet marinade underneath. Just try something new and different. Give it some rich flavor, and then tomorrow I'll do the ossobuco. I think there's a recipe in here, but I don't think I'm gonna do the Italian version. I'm just gonna use the principles of this recipe to do ossobuco. So you can see what it is. So I'm gonna do mine different. I'm gonna I'll do the browning, but when I put it in the crock pot, I'm gonna do either a beef broth in there with cooked onions and maybe some garlic. That's probably what I'll do. And then I'll do some potatoes and veggies as a side and make a gravy. But you just slow cook it and it just breaks down all that sinew and tendon, and it's just really tasty and full of flavor because of the bone marrow in the bones. So that should be pretty tasty. Anyway, I'll pick back up again when I get on that tomorrow. All right. We're gonna get out for late November cow elk hunt. I've got a couple tags in my pocket for different areas, and I have one for this unit. I hunted quite a bit back up in here on the west side of my valley along the Idaho border for bull elk. We got the sled and pack on there, gun, and I think we're ready. Another outfit just sun's starting to glow. We're gonna hike up to the top of this ridge here, just short ways, and we can see all the way down this valley and up. Nothing on the way in except mule deer, does. I got up this morning early just because I couldn't sleep. And I made a fire and I was just gonna relax and watch college football all day. And I can't waste a beautiful Saturday morning with elk tags in my pocket. So here I am. Oops. There's our glow. Farm fields down below. Just hoping elk are back out in these open hills before they head to the forest, or they're coming up from the farm field. Not seeing any tracks in the snow. Doesn't mean they're not eating. Here's our first cow elk track, cutting up this way, coming up the road here. Right there. Looks like it's a couple days old, maybe. Well, at least I saw a track. So I know they're walking up this draw. So I'm seeing most of the elk tracks now that I've four-wheeled up here on top. And droppings. There's a track. There's droppings. So I'm gonna go poke and look up and down this draw, but I think next week is Thanksgiving and I'll come up and hunt. But I think I'm gonna come right up here on top because there's just tracks everywhere. Droppings everywhere. So I'm gonna park there. There's a four-wheeler trail here. There's also one here, but nobody's ridden out on it for the past week. It's right on this ridge top, so all those tracks were floating this way. I wonder if there's elk bedded on this ridge top, especially if they didn't get any pressure from four-wheelers. There's not a lot of guys out here usually, but it just takes one to stir them up a bit and push them up on top of a ridge. Feel comfortable on it. sun wants to come out, but lots of cloud cover. Alright, I was working this ridge top, and now right there, I don't know if you can see him in that opening. That's an elk. There's one just above her. 2 cow elk. I'm trying to decide if I take a shot from here or try and work closer. It's probably 400 yards from here. It was 570 yards to those elk from the top of it. So I decided to see if I can close the distance. There's a fence line right here, and I think there's a 4-wheeler trail that goes right along it. But I'm gonna ease down here and see if I can get a shot. Should just be about 200 yards, maybe 300 away now. Yeah, I can hear the cow. I just heard a cow chirp. I'm going to ease along this fence line, see if I can shoot up into the trees. I just heard a cow chirp. There's a cow elk. Bedded right there above my finger in that opening. So there's a cow elk bedded down out at the timber. The other 2 were feeding up higher in the timber from up top. So I'm not sure I can ease down any. And it's kind of scraggly. I might be able to get in where I can get a shot on her, but I have to be careful not to bump them. There's an elk right there. And there's 2 above her. And there's 1 bedded up and to the right. And I hear others just below me. But it's so brushy between me and them, I can't get a shot. But I'm within 100 yards. There's an elk bedded right there in that opening. And I think I can get a shot on her. It's like 100 yards. It's just 100 yards, and that's an elk in that opening right there. I couldn't film it, but I took a shot. I'm nervous. I clipped a branch. But as soon as I shot, a whole herd came up out of the bottom here. I should have been a little more patient and eased right to this fence line, but I was afraid we're going to see. So let's see if we have an elk or if there's blood. Well, my first trek up, I didn't cut any blood. This is a classic example of I needed to keep going about 15 meters to my left to get right on the fence line and then just sit. And if I bump them, I bump them, but then I have a perfectly clear lane because there's this 4-wheeler trail along the fence line that nobody's been up or down, and so they were just camped out in this swale here. But I tried to squeeze a shot through a circle about this big, but there's always that one twig you might hit. because I was the one that was bedded stood up. I don't think she saw me, but she was looking back this way. But now that I see from here, it's super thick up in there. This would have been the perfect little place to shoot an elk. Good stock, a lot of fun, and then four-wheeler trail coming in to retrieve it easily. I'm gonna do some cuts back and forth because they went off this way to make sure there's no blood. Well, another lesson that I know is don't just hunt the elk you can see when it's thick like this. So I was trying to move back and forth and find an opening for the elk I could see, because there's probably elk you can't see, and just get to a shooting lane and let them move into it when it's thick like this. I got to a pretty darn good lane, but I was kind of shooting through a 2x2 opening, but there's always that branch that you never know if you're going to nick it and send your bullet ricocheting off. Well, that stinks. It was about a half mile from here, about 800 meters. That big tree was 570. They had pushed right up into that draw where they felt safe. Should have been more patient. All right. I think I'll head home and come back on Monday. I might come right back to here in the dark and then ease out on these ridges again. It's like 9 degrees. Too cold to be four-wheeling. I took a different trail and now I regret it because I'm just pinned in this tight valley. If I'd been up on top, I could be hiking around right now off the four-wheeler on top of ridge tops. Kind of silly. Oh, it's cold. Pretty sunrise. So, I got too dang cold on that four-wheeler. It was 9 degrees at the truck, but it felt even colder up here. I couldn't get my hands to... It felt like people were hammering my fingertips with hammers. So I got to hiking. We'll get up on top of this ridge and see where the elk are, if they're out there. It's a beautiful morning. Got a couple more inches of snow since a couple days ago when I was out hunting. Oh, this is a steeper climb than I thought. It's pretty cold. I'm hoping that sun popping out here takes the edge off. This draw didn't have any four-wheeler tracks in it, so I went all the way around and came up to the top. And I'm walking this ridge trying to see if elk are down in here. Or on top of this one. Just down off that side, down in the bottom, where I had my encounter the other day. So nothing. My toes are frozen. I don't get colds, but today was cold. Such a beautiful morning. Well, it's probably about 15 degrees, maybe 20. Hiking uphill, so I feel warmer. But I'm almost to the fence. It's right there, and I'll work that fence line on these ridge tops. Look down into the draws, hope that they're bedded. It's just down here in the bottom where I had my encounter the other day. I've got the four-wheeler parked in a saddle over here, and I can go downhill and out through the snow. But it's just a beautiful morning in the snow. I love hunting in the snow. I'm following moose tracks. I'm going slow, and now I see it right there. See her? In that opening right in the middle there. Just a cow moose standing there. There he is, young bull moose. I thought his tracks looked awfully fresh. Coming down, dirt kicked up on top of the snow. There's a little community we live in. Little tiny Bedford is tucked back in there. You can see the houses there. In fact, I think I see my house. Come on. Got my contrast all screwed up. There we go. There's my trail through that meadow. Well, I'm seeing deer tracks, but no elk tracks yet. Other than that single cow. I've probably hiked a mile and a half. And I'll just keep going on this ridge until I have to go back to the four-wheeler. Alrighty. We're back. So, that was 5 miles of hiking. No, I take that back. It was 6, because I went a half mile down this ridge and a half mile back up, and then I clicked my tracker. So 6 miles of hiking. It's almost noon, so I was hiking for 4 hours. Now we get to see if we can Rambo down this draw. Looks like it should go. Alright, well, I only cut 3 elk tracks in all that hiking, which was strange. Strange indeed. That's it for today, unless I come back out in the evening, I think. out here earlier. It's lightly snowing right now, and it's supposed to potentially really pound us later today, but this light snow is supposed to stop in about 20 minutes, so I'm going to try and ride through it. Hopefully it stops and I have about a 2 or 3 hour window of hunting, and we'll see how that goes. And then I got to get out. And that might be the last time I can use the four-wheeler if it really starts piling up. So here we go. Off into the snow. The only bummer about it snowing this morning is it's covering up any fresh tracks from last night. Hopefully the snow has them pushing around, especially with the snow starting and stopping multiple times today. Hopefully they're out a little longer and more elk are pushing in from up high to come down low to beat this storm. Well, the snow didn't stop. And even coming back from just this 3/4 of a mile or mile hike, I've already got about an inch in my tracks. So I'm 4 miles maybe up into the mountains, and I'm going to four-wheeler out of here. Before I get stuck, I just checked the forecast, and now it says it's just going to start snowing and go all day. So guess I'll be hunting the lower foothills from here on out, if this storm is as big as they say it's going to be. I don't have a snowmobile to come up here. Maybe next year. So beautiful. Hunting in the snow. Starting to pile up on me though. Made it back. I'm really liking this sled. I got a tarp underneath it. And I really like this sled as a container on the back. I think I'm just gonna have that as a permanent setup for hunting even when it's dry. Because you can still drag game on dry ground with that. It's pretty slick. And I can just throw crap in the back and not worry about it. The little things. All right, it's probably 11 in the morning. And the last few days it's been so cold in the morning, and I was uncertain about the depth of the snow that I was just like, So I've been kind of lazy. But today is such a beautiful day that I finally just decided midday to get out here and do some poking around. Two guys were coming in behind me. They're probably 30 minutes behind me. I saw them parking and getting ready. I just heard a couple gunshots down below. So I'm gonna peek in here and then work out on this ridge. So beautiful. If these tracks weren't here, I probably wouldn't. There's a few spots where I was like digging and sliding trying to get through. So it's probably at least 15 inches deep. So you can see all those tracks down in there, and there's multiple beds as well. And there's a bunch up here too. And so a couple of herds have been down in here. I'm assuming they're pushing out of the mountains and they're moving out this way. So I think I'm gonna back out and go and work those multiple ridges back there that I've been working. Assuming there's new herds on it. Just make sure nothing's down in here hanging out. It sure feels like a little staging area for a herd that came down out, hung out in this valley, and then moved further out where the snow's shallower as you go out on those ridges. Let's double check though. Lots of geese flying over. I think that there was like a trigger this week where like, I guess this cold's sticking around, and they just, I keep hearing huge flocks flying over. Should be out there with a goose gun. So I changed my mind, and I pushed out and checked out those tracks down here, and then came up on this ridge to the west. Just there's so many tracks and they're all headed this way. I'm like, I wonder if they're bedded up in here and they haven't pushed down onto the lower ridges yet. So we'll see. Well, I followed these tracks all the way up this back ridge, thinking maybe I'd catch them bedded in here. But they disappear into the thick timber. They've dusted in for the most part. And so I think these are a day or two old, but it was a sizable herd. And I still feel like they pushed down through here and fed along this ridge and milled about, and then probably headed east into the foothills. So I'm going to start working my way back to the four-wheeler and then loop out from that to the west. So I might get lucky up this draw on this ridge with all these tracks. Well, I worked that way, huge, maybe mile and a half loop, not huge, a mile and a half loop, and came back around, and then worked out this ridge about a mile, did a couple of loops off it, and then came back. So, maybe 4 miles of hiking, and I cut 3 cross tracks, just individuals, probably some cow elk on this ridge, but one dives off into this heavy timber, and if I had some food and water with me, I'd probably follow it because it looked fairly new, but like maybe this morning. But it's 2 in the afternoon, and I realized my pack was empty of food and water just a little while ago. Trudging back, dang it. Glad I came out though. Every time. It's so beautiful. Check out that little guy. Oh, there he is. He was in here. He was super curious. He was running back and forth, just looking at me. For a minute, I thought he was going to run up on the machine. So noise. That looks pretty cool. I got my glove back on. Elk hunting with James. First time in a couple years. Oh, it really lit up. Hunting here in the Tetons with James, or at the base of the Tetons. It's kind of fun. There's the Tetons. But right there is two horse hunters. Guys on horseback. And then right there through the trees, moving along that white double track road, is a guy pedaling a snow mountain bike. Big old fat tires on it. And he's got a rifle scabbard. Wish I could zoom in further. He's got a rifle scabbard, a pack on, and his hunter's orange. They don't appear to be hunting together. The horsemen are up higher. He's riding the road. Kind of funny. Elk hunting in Wyoming. I feel like I'm finally starting to get a tiny bit warm. We've been shivering. It was 12 degrees walking in. Feels like it's up to maybe 20. Beautiful morning. Just no elk. It's windy, sorry about that. Those two rams are getting feisty. Here on the National Elk Refuge. On the National Elk Refuge, there's bighorn sheep that come down to winter. You probably can't hear me, it's so windy. Here at the edge of the refuge, they tend to pile up here. Roll down your window real quick. Good rams. There's three more decent rams right there. Sometimes they're fighting. It's kind of fun, knocking heads.